So after having drawn with Aryan Tari in the final round of the World Junior Championships, I played him in the 8th round of the Wykanse tournament in the Challengers group. And so before like 2 months ago, in the game of the World Junior Championships, I was also having the white pieces against Aryan Tari. And before in that game, as for preparation, I was deciding what to play after e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, which is Aryan's one of his main openings. And at the time, I wasn't really sure whether to go for either the Spanish with bishop b5 or the very fashionable nowadays Italian or the Scotch. And in the end, I decided to play the Italian, which is bishop c4. And although I got some slight edge, I never won that game. The reason why I went for the Italian in that game and not for the Spanish or the Scotch is well, the Spanish I hadn't played for some time and I wasn't really updated on the lines, so I thought it's not a good idea to choose this opening in a must-win situation. And for the Scotch defense, I was a little bit afraid, together with my coach Ivan Sokolov there, that Aryan was getting some help from his fellow countryman, the Norwegian player Magnus Carlsen, who I think is quite known. And I thought, well, if I go for the Scotch, maybe with some help from the world champion, the game might end in a draw, since with some strong preparation, well, maybe since the Scotch is quite a forced opening, Black with good preparation can make an easy draw. At least that's what I thought at the time. So now fast forward 2 months to Wykanse, and actually here Carlsen was playing a tournament himself in the master section, so at least I knew Tari wasn't getting any help probably. And I thought, well, since I had done some preparation already on the Scotch and had some ideas, I might give it a try for this game. So that's why I went d4 here. And basically, Aryan didn't have too many games in the database, but from what I'd seen, he seems to have a pretty fixed repertoire against the Scotch. So takes, knight f6, which is basically the main line. Other moves are bishop c5, and maybe other only real possibility is queen f6. But knight f6 is by far the main line, I think. Knight takes e6, bc6, e5, queen e7, queen e2, knight d5, and c4. And this is basically all quite forced after knight f6. And by now black has two major options, either to go knight b6 as Aryan did in the game, or bishop a6, which is probably the main move. Well, after bishop a6, white has a couple of options. The most fashionable nowadays is to go knight d2, trying to put the knight on f3, reinforcing the pawn on e5, and just developing his pieces. However, recently a very interesting game between Gawain Jones and Vladimir Kramnik was played, which went g6, knight f3, queen b4 check, king d1. This is basically the entire point of white's play, since queen d2 is not possible due to the simple loss of a pawn. So king d1, and now Kramnik played this new idea, knight e7, and he won a reasonably smooth game against Gawain Jones. After bishop a6, what I probably would have done is to go b3 here, which also leads to very interesting positions. And well, anybody can analyze these these lines. Anyway, my opponent went knight b6, which is called the Mises variation, knight c3, and queen e6. And actually, I have had some games in this line. To be precise, I have had 3 games, and 2 of my opponents here went a5, and 1 went bishop b7. All of them are a little bit sidelines, but as you will see as when you start analyzing the Scotch defense yourself, it turns out black has many possibilities on almost every turn, and it's almost all of them are at least reasonably playable, and so are a5 and bishop b7. However, for this game, Aryan went for the main line queen e6. Now I went for queen e4, which is also the main line, and he went for g6. The other main move is d5, but I think white will get a slight advantage in this in these resulting positions after e takes d6 and probably c takes d6, since the endgame after queen takes e4, knight takes e4, c takes d6, b3, and sending bishop b2 and exerting nice pressure on the long diagonal is definitely slightly better for white. But also after c takes d6 and, for example, bishop d3, white is better due to the famous island rule. So white in his pawn structure only has 2 pawn islands, while black has 3, making his pawn structure slightly more vulnerable to attacks. So after queen e4, for example, bishop b4, bishop b7, b3, white also has a slight advantage in this endgame. So that's why Aryan Tari went for g6, which I think is the most critical move, and for now we're still following a couple of hundred of games, and it's still deep in theory. And now I went for a move which is, well, slightly less theoretic, and it is bishop d2. The main move is bishop d3 in this position. However, I think that black doesn't have too many problems in the main line after bishop g7, f4, castles, bishop a6, forcing b3, and d5. Utilizing that white cannot take en passant since there's this pin. So c takes d5, c takes d5, queen e2, take. And I think black should be able to hold this position. But for this game I had the new idea bishop d2. Okay, it's not entirely new, but it's not as known as the main line with bishop d3. Aryan went for the most critical option, which is bishop a6. The other move is bishop g7. But white will get a nice little advantage here with some accurate moves. He goes c5, knight d5, bishop c4, queen takes e5, queen takes, bishop takes e5. And black seems to have won a pawn, at least temporarily. And after the natural knight takes d5, c takes d5, bishop takes d5, rook b8, he faces none too little problems. However, white has a very strong move here at its disposal, which is long castling. Using the fact that he is for the moment ahead in development and threatening to pin the black bishop to the king. And white here is having a comfortable edge after castles, takes. Okay, finally you have to take the pawn, takes. And since white is still ahead in development, white definitely has the better chances here. That's why Aryan went for the move bishop a6. which is the other main move in this position. And now a reasonably forced sequence unfolds with c5, forcing black to put his knight in the pin, which is basically what will be the main theme of this entire line, and what white bases his hopes on. Of course, black cannot take on f1, since after c takes b6, both his bishop and his pawn on c7 is attacked, as well as in some positions. For example, b7 may be an annoying move. So knight c4, and now black is threatening to take on d2, so white has to remove his bishop, since bishop takes c4, bishop takes c4, b3, bishop d5, take, queen d4, bishop g7 is completely fine for black. So bishop g5, and basically this is where the real interesting play will begin. Black has to take the pawn, castles, and castles. So black has won a pawn, but his knight is in a very annoying pin, which basically he can never get out of. And of course, both kings are weak. The white king has lost a pawn in front of its king. However, the black king has a very dangerous problem, which is that the dark squares will be a problem which you will have to face for a long time, and that is basically what the white's play will be focused on. In this position, white has a couple of moves. I went for queen f4. The other main move, which is actually played in a couple of correspondence games, is b3, trying to immediately win the piece. But after bishop b4, knight b1, and this very strong move f6, black gets a dangerous play for the piece, which he will lose soon. After bishop h6, d5, keeping fighting for initiative, queen h4, fe5, sacrificing also the exchange, and resulting to this very interesting and crazy position. So white is up the exchange, and well, well, superficially it might look good for white, since he's up he's up a rook, but black has a lot of play. He has the pair of bishops, and the white king is extremely weak. Also, black is up a lot on development, and I think the position is very unclear. A nice idea, for example, is after queen g3 to go bishop f8, going around from the other side and harassing the white king. That's why I didn't go for this line, but instead I went for queen f4, which to me makes a lot more sense. White wants to bring the knight to e4 and f6, immediately creating mate threats against the black threat, which is practically always a very annoying situation, and at the same time keeping the pin on the knight on c4 and keeping b3 as an option. And in this position, my opponent Aryan thought for a while, I think about half an hour, and he played one of the correct moves, which is d5. Other moves are also leading to very interesting positions. I thought before the game that maybe rook fb8 is the most natural human option, wanting to play vacating the f8 square for the bishop in case of any mate threats, and starting to create play against the white king as well. So b3 is the only move basically. Right now you have to use the pin, and now black goes d5, sacrificing the piece. And at the moment it's a very bad idea for white to take the piece. I believe he will run some very big risks for example, this line. It doesn't look like too much fun.